fishing for the greatest of all times, then you have to be someone like Elway, where you can get teams that aren't that great and you can get them to Super Bowls. Maybe you don't have that much success, but at least Elway has 2 rings, and he took teams to the Super Bowl that a lot of people didn't have a lot of faith in. And Rodgers has had some pretty good teams, and they haven't had a lot of success in terms of getting to conference championships and Super Bowls. So, yeah, look, I think it's warranted the fact to say that he's one of the best to play under center today, but to put him in GOAT talk, that's another reason why we started this show, because that's ridiculous. The fact that some of these shows like Undisputed and First Take have these kind of debates, basically it feels like daily, trying to put Rodgers up on this pedestal just for the debatable topics, the numbers would prove that he's just not there. 1 Super Bowl ring in all his starts, and the fact that he's just not consistently getting the Packers in a position to even challenge for that, I've got to pump the brakes on that some. So, Eric, if he stays healthy, I think is going to be how they're going to hit this number, because coming off a year, again, where they were 7-9, but Rodgers missed quite a bit of last year, Vegas has set their over-under number at 10. So what do you like for the Packers this year?
Wow, 10. Coming off the season that they just had, I'm going to have to take the under. I'll take 9-7 for these Packers. I think they're going to struggle with some interdivision games. They probably beat Chicago and Detroit a time or two. Then they've got Minnesota, which maybe they split with Minnesota. They've got a tough game at Los Angeles Rams and at New England in their schedule. At Seattle. Now, I know Seattle's a bit down and out, especially defensively compared to where they've been, but you always worry when you go to play in the Legion of Boom and in that 12th man environment. So they've got a schedule that says to me that I think they can get to 9, pretty confidently. Can they get to 10 maybe for a push? Can they get to 11 for the over? No, I don't really think so, unless Aaron Rodgers comes out and proves me wrong and takes them into a major playoff push and a playoff run. But again, I think this team is just overhyped because it's the Packers, because it's the green and gold, and it's just one of those upper echelon teams in the NFL. But Rodgers needs to really step up and take this team and win this NFC North, or he's just another 1-ring Super Bowl quarterback. So I'll take the under at 9-7, and I need to see a lot more from Rodgers this year, or else he's really trending downward on his way out.
Yeah, 10's a tough line. Boy, that half game really would be nice, because if it's at 9.5, I'd feel very confident going over. If it was 10.5, I'd feel pretty confident going under. But just looking at their schedule, if I had to make a decision, I can't go the push. When they start with Chicago and then they're at Minnesota, Washington, Buffalo, Detroit, and the 49ers. Then they get their bye in week 7. I think they could easily be 5-1 at that point. Then they go back-to-back Rams and Patriots, both of them on the road. I would say at that point you could give them 2 more losses. Then they get a little bit softer where they go Miami and Seattle. Those are both winnable games. Then it's back at the Vikings, then Arizona, Atlanta, Chicago, and then they end with the Jets and the Lions. So based on that schedule and how they end, I think they end pretty soft. They've got a couple tough games there in the middle. I can see them getting to 11-5. So I'll go with the over. I'd feel much more confident going with the push, but I'll try to stick with going over or under. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and put them at 11-5, just because I think the schedule is a little bit soft based on what we talked about really with that NFC East, and even the NFC West, which we'll talk about next week, isn't quite the division that it was even 2 years ago. A lot has changed in that division. So with that said, I think they can find a way to get to 11. So that brings us to our last team of the evening, and that's the Minnesota Vikings. They were the surprise team last year. They found a way to get to 13-3. They ended up in Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game, and they got beat pretty good, but they had the craziest play of not only last season, but that we've seen in quite a while. And maybe you can make a case for it in NFL history of how to end a football game in a true walk-off. But again, last year, we talked about it several times on the show. Mike Zimmer never wanted to fully commit to Case Keenum, and I guess with good reason, because they didn't want to commit to him after this year. As soon as the season were over, they shoved Case Keenum aside, and they brought in Kirk Cousins with open arms, and the first mega fully guaranteed deal, a 3-year fully guaranteed deal for Kirk Cousins that could change the quarterback market in terms of what these quarterbacks really want going forward. But again, Eric, 13-3 NFC Championship game. Do you feel like Kirk Cousins can take the Vikings further than Case Keenum did, which would really mean that they can find a way to get to the Super Bowl?
Take them further than Case Keenum can? No, not a chance. And that's not because I'm down on Kirk Cousins. I think, again, we talked about Keenum, Cousins, Alex Smith, these teams that needed to make a quarterback move and felt that they were invested in that type of change. You got to go with it because you feel like it's fresh blood and they've got a momentum going there. But to say that they're going to then definitely get to the Super Bowl, I can't just automatically give that to them because they've got Kirk Cousins. So no, I don't think he makes that much of a difference. Case Keenum may not be as good of a quarterback as Kirk Cousins. I don't know, but Case Keenum had a great year last year. And so Kirk Cousins would have to have that level of a year. We haven't seen him necessarily be able to do that. He's got a great receiver with Stephon Diggs. He's got weapons there, but he's got to put all the pieces together. I think the roster is strong. I think the offense is very strong. I'm definitely not down on the Vikings, but Cousins is going to have to take his game to the level that they're paying him at. And if he does, they're going to make a deep run into the playoffs. But your question was, can he take them further than Case Keenum did? No, I don't think in just year one he's going to automatically make them a Super Bowl champion.
Yeah, I got to tend to agree with you. Look, I talked about Cousins a little bit in the Redskin piece that I felt he just never really performed up to par in Washington. Now, he's going to be playing with the best defense that he's ever played with. You pointed out Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen had a great year last year. You'd have to think that he can continue that with Cousins. They got a good tight end in Kyle Rudolph, and they get Dalvin Cook back. And again, their defense is phenomenal. So if he can rely on them, and again, he doesn't make those fatal mistakes in terms of win-losses for a game in the fourth quarter by turning the ball over, I think they can have a really good year, and they'll be in the mix as maybe in the divisional round. But I just can't see them getting to the Super Bowl. Again, you've got the Eagles. They're not going anywhere once they get Wentz back. As long as they don't rush Wentz back and get him hurt, they're going to be tough to beat. The Rams, they've made a lot of adjustments on their team and getting more guys in on their roster, some of the moves that they have made. So we're going to talk about them next week. And we just talked about the Packers. So right there is three other teams that are going to be fighting with the Vikings to get there. I think they have a chance to get back to the NFC Championship game, but I'm not willing to say that they can go win that and get to a Super Bowl. I'm just not sure that they're there yet. Maybe within Cousins' 3-year deal, they can find a way to get there. But again, that's going to come back to bite them as some of these contracts come up for guys, and teams that have success year after year, they're in the limelight. Guys on other teams, GMs see that. They want some of those players, and you just can't sign everybody when you have that type of deal. They probably could have got a discount, got Keenum similar to the deal that they've got. The Vikings feel like they're upgrading, and that's what held them back. I think they had some other issues that held them back in that game in Philadelphia. And again, that was Nick Foles under center that put that on him. You'd have to think that Carson Wentz could run that offense even more effective. So, yeah, I don't see them getting back to that position, and it'll be what they have to give up in the years to come if they can even ever get to that point of getting to a Super Bowl. So, Eric, same number as the Packers is what Vegas has for the Vikings. They have their over-under sit at 10. So what do you like for the Vikings here as we close out the NFC North?
Well, this one I'm going over. I think they're a better team than the Packers, and I think that their schedule allows them 7 to 8 easy wins and then 1 or 2 wins that I feel like they're going to get. That gets me to 9. Then if they just simply split with the Packers, maybe steal the one in week 4 in Los Angeles against the Rams and get some of those interdivisional games to go their way, I really feel like I can get them to 11 or 12. So I'm taking the over, and I feel like this team is the NFC North champion again, but that's not because of Cousins. It's because I respect Cousins, but I also respect that their defense is very, very good, and they do have weapons on their team offensively. So I feel like it's going to be a great team. But look, it's not all because of Kirk Cousins. So I hope, like you said, the media needs to pump the brakes a little bit on that, because this is an overall very good team, much like the Eagles with the Eagles defense and the Eagles, the way that they have pieces put in place. This is a very similar situation. The Vikings are a very good team. It's not just because of Kirk Cousins, though. They were a good team last year. So I'm taking the over. I do think they win the NFC North, and I think they could get to 12 wins.
Yeah, I like the over as well. And look, I talked about Cousins and some of the limitations that he's had at this point in his career. Again, this is probably the best roster that he's played on from player 1 to 53. Similar to what we talked about with the Eagles, where Cousins has to get in his mind that he doesn't have to go out every game and win every game, that he just needs to, again, control the game, not turn the football over, take advantage of advantageous field position that his defense gives him and really rely on them, and then utilize the weapons that he has around him. I think he'll have a good year. I don't think they'll get to 13 wins again. I don't see that number, but again, I like him over 10. I agree with you. I think they'll be in that 11 and 12 range. And nothing against Kirk Cousins. It's just the numbers don't lie and the eye test doesn't lie. If you're going to get that type of hype around you, it's like some of those people that put that hype on there, they don't watch football, Eric. It's just like the week in, week out, they don't watch the games. They just comment on it. I guess similar to what Michelle Beadle came up with on Get Up, where she said she doesn't really watch the NFL, and now she's not even on that show. She's just on NBA, which I feel some of these shows need to do that. If these guys and gals don't want to commit to watching football and they want to get on and comment about it, it kind of takes away from them that they're not watching some of the play that's out there. And that's really my point with Cousins is he's just got to be a player that in the fourth quarter, when the game's on the line, he just can't turn the football over and make dumb plays. He has to figure out a way not to do that. I think this team hopefully will get that through in his head that, hey, you don't have to go out every week and win the game for us. You just have to really do a little more than manage the game. Just don't throw it away for us. Almost similar to what we talked about with Jacksonville last week is you have a great defense in place. Don't ruin it.
Well, speaking of Jacksonville, before we end the show, I do have to, unfortunately, Justin, once again, just like we did last week with some sad news out of the IndyCar series with Robert Wickens and his crash, and we certainly hope that he is improving in the hospital there. There was some news out of Jacksonville this week that there was at a Madden NFL 19 qualifying tournament for video games. There's Madden NFL draws a lot of people who get into tournaments to play that video game. There was unfortunately a shooting at the Florida Mall there in Jacksonville where 2 people were killed and another 11 were shot and had to be taken to the hospital for injuries. And I'm not going to give the shooter credit. I'm not going to say his name, and we're also not going to get political. But it wasn't an assault rifle. It was a handgun. So just a lot of things happening right now in this country to kind of turn our eyes toward and remember that sports can bring us together and things can also tear us apart. So we want to just give our thoughts and prayers certainly to all of the family and friends of those affected by that mass shooting there at the Madden NFL 19 qualifying tournament down there in Jacksonville. That's going to do it for episode 214 of Talk Back. We appreciate you listening, and we hope you have a great weekend. Thank you for listening to this episode of Talk Back. Staying current on sports is our #1 goal, so we drop a new episode each Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or the podcatcher of your choice. For more info about the show, to meet the hosts, or to partner with us on future episodes, please visit TalkBackFanTalk.com. We really enjoy hearing your take on the world of sports, even when you disagree. After all, this show is dedicated to you, the fans. So get direct access to us on Twitter using @TalkBackJustin and @TalkBackEric. Check out our corporate feed on Twitter and Instagram using the handle @TalkBackFanTalk. We hope you have a great week. We'll talk back at you next time.